My husband beat me for refusing to live with his mother, and then calmly went to rest. In the morning, he brought me makeup and said, "Mom's coming for lunch. Cover all that up and smile." Hours later, he left for the office, and upon entering his boss's conference room, he turned pale when he saw me. Before we begin, tell me in the comments what city you're listening from. I would love to know how far this story has traveled. Now get ready. What you are about to hear is not just a novel. It is a mirror, and many may not be able to bear its reflection. The first time Valerie Scott said no, her lip was broken. The second time, her soul was shattered. Valerie was 32. She loved coffee in the mornings, books with open endings, and the silence just before everything explodes. She worked from home in a corner of the kitchen where she had improvised a small office with a borrowed laptop, a chair without a backrest, and an aromatic candle that no longer smelled of anything but gave her the illusion of having her own space. She was a quiet, reserved woman, the kind who doesn't shout when she speaks and gives everything when she loves. She lived with her husband, Julian Hayes, a man who, in front of others, was educated, attentive, and even charming. But when the door to their house closed, the story was different. For him, love was not partnership, it was property, it was obedience. And Valerie had learned this through blows, though no one ever knew. That morning, the air in the house felt different, heavy, as if something was about to burst. "I won't allow it, Julian," Valerie said, her voice firm but her heart trembling. "I don't plan to live with your mother." He spun around from the doorway, his eyes ignited. "Excuse me? We already discussed this. I don't want her interfering in our house. She already does enough by giving her opinion on everything." Julian approached slowly. His steps echoed like heartbeats on the floor. "My mother is not an option, Valerie. She is part of my life. And if you don't understand that, then you are out." She took a step back. She had never seen him so tense. His fists were clenched, his jaw hardened. "Are you threatening me? I'm making things clear. I rule this house, and if my mother comes to live with us, you smile and welcome her." Valerie swallowed. For a moment, she thought about giving in, not out of fear, but out of exhaustion. But her body couldn't take any more silence. She no longer wanted any more nights pretending everything was fine. Enough. That no was the spark that ignited hell. Julian lunged at her without a second thought. No one screamed. No one stopped him. There were no witnesses in that house. Only walls that already knew how to keep secrets. Minutes later, the bathroom was silent. Valerie stood in front of the mirror, her face bloody, her soul turned to dust. With trembling hands, she opened the drawer and took out an old foundation bottle. She applied it to her face while tears escaped her. "Don't cry, it'll run," she said to herself, bitterly mocking her reflection. The door opened abruptly. Julian entered with a cup of coffee in his hand. "My mother is coming for lunch. Cover yourself well and smile." She didn't answer. She lowered her gaze, feeling the shame burn her skin like acid. He left the cup on the counter and went to dress for work, whistling as if nothing had happened. The doorbell rang at noon. Amelia Hayes had arrived. She came loaded with bags, cheap perfume, and venomous comments. "And that's the meal?" she asked disdainfully, looking at the set table. "So little seasoning, darling. In my day, women knew how to cook." Valerie swallowed her rage. "I hope you like it," she said, forcing a smile while an invisible tear slipped down her soul. During lunch, Amelia criticized the decor, the tablecloth, the silverware, and even how Valerie chewed. Julian sat there. Not once did he defend her. It was as if he enjoyed watching his mother slowly tear her apart. When the visit ended, Julian put on his tie in front of the mirror and gave her a final order. "I'm going. I'll be at the office late. Don't go out, don't answer calls, I don't want any trouble." He walked out the door as if he hadn't just broken everything he touched. As soon as she heard the car engine pull away, Valerie grabbed her phone. She dialed a number she had saved a long time ago, one she never thought she would use. Her voice was low but decisive. "Is everything ready?" From the other end, a male voice replied, "Everything according to plan. We're waiting for you." She hung up without saying more. She took a deep breath, changed her clothes, wiped away the makeup, put some papers in her purse, and left. Hours later, Julian arrived at his office. He entered, greeting everyone with his usual smile, shaking hands, cracking forced jokes, feigning normalcy. He went up to the executive floor, unaware that his world was about to collapse. "The new owner is already here," a secretary said, barely looking at him. "She's in the boardroom." Julian quickened his pace. No one had told him about such an important change. New owner? Who had approved it? He opened the door and froze. There, sitting at the head of the table, was Valerie. Impeccable. Elegant. Serene. She looked at him with a calm that chilled his blood. "Hello, Julian." He was breathless. "What? What are you doing here?" She stood up, walking toward him without taking her eyes off him. "I present to you the new chief executive officer of the company. The official heir. The woman who was afraid yesterday and who holds the power today." The directors murmured among themselves. Some looked at him with pity, others with mockery. Julian stepped back. "Did you plan all this?" Valerie smiled, but this time not out of obligation, not out of fear. She smiled because for the first time in a long time, she was doing it without anyone ordering her to. This is just the beginning. And while Julian tried to grasp the impossible, Valerie took her seat, crossed her legs elegantly, and began the meeting calmly, as if she hadn't just changed everything. Because sometimes the most dangerous thing a broken woman can have is accumulated silence and an opportunity to speak. The boardroom was filled with a thick silence, as if the air had been replaced by something denser. Fear, rage, disbelief. Julian could barely stay on his feet. Sweat ran down his temples while Valerie, imperturbable, continued the meeting as if nothing extraordinary had happened. She spoke clearly, with an elegant tone, without needing to raise her voice. She gave no explanations, she didn't justify her presence. She simply assumed the power as if it had always belonged to her. The executives exchanged tense looks. Some pretended to take notes, others concealed their surprise. A couple of them, who knew more than they let on, swallowed with discomfort. Julian sat down without asking permission in an isolated chair. His body was there, but his mind was still trapped in that image. Valerie, sitting on the throne of his father's company, transformed into something he never imagined, a threat. When the meeting ended, she slowly stood up, closed her folder, and left without looking at anyone. Not a single word addressed to Julian, not a glance. She walked down the hallway as if she knew exactly where she was going, as if she had traveled that path 1,000 times, even though this was the first time she had set foot in that building with her name written on the official documents. The rumors quickly spread like a wildfire. How did that woman get here? Wasn't she Julian's wife? Now she's his boss, and they say she inherited everything from the previous owner. Can that be true? I heard the founder's family kept her hidden. What if she was the old man's mistress? The voices multiplied, the intrigue grew, but Valerie did not respond. Her silence was more feared than any statement, and that, for many, was the most unsettling thing. Meanwhile, Julian wandered the office like a ghost. No one greeted him as before. The respect had vanished, and when he tried to regain control in the meeting the next day, his chair was occupied by someone else. He returned home at night seeking solace. But only his mother, Amelia, was waiting for him, sitting with the light off and a drink in her hand. "What have you done?" she asked without looking at him. "Nothing," he replied, dropping his keys on the table. "Don't lie to me, Julian. I found out about the company. How can that woman be sitting in your father's place?" "She's not just that woman, she's my wife." "Or was. And how did she become your boss?" Julian slumped onto the sofa, exhausted. His eyes showed something Amelia was not used to seeing in her son, defeat. "I don't know. I swear I don't know. She was at home this morning, and now she runs everything. I don't know how she did it." "Then find out, because if you don't recover what belongs to you, I will." Valerie, on the other hand, locked herself in her office surrounded by documents, files, and new faces. There was much to clean up, too much to uncover. The company, which had been in corrupt hands for years, was a minefield. Every corner held a secret. Every desk hid a conflict, and she knew it. She smelled it in the air. She called a private meeting with human resources, reviewing contracts, promotions, and wrongful terminations one by one. In 3 days, she fired 5 managers who had sabotaged the projects of honest employees for years. She didn't tremble when signing the papers. She knew that honest people needed space to breathe. "I didn't come to destroy this company," she said in her first internal speech. "I came to clean it, to heal it like a wound that hurts at first but then scars." The words were recorded and went viral in employee groups. Many began to admire her secretly. Others hated her quietly. But everyone knew one thing: Valerie had come to stay. Meanwhile, Julian tried to find flaws. He called lawyers, investigated the inheritance documents. None found anything irregular. Everything was legal, impossibly legal, as if everything had been prepared years in advance. And that drove him crazy, because it meant Valerie hadn't reacted overnight. She had planned it, patiently, like someone preparing a storm and waiting for the exact moment to let out the first thunder. That night, Julian waited for her outside the building. "I need to talk to you." She looked at him for a second without stopping. "No, Valerie, please. Why should I listen to you?" "Because not everything was a lie." She stopped. She looked at him with something that wasn't hate. It was pity. A cold pity that cut deeper than contempt. "Everything was a lie, Julian. From the first I love you to the last blow. I didn't want to hurt you. And yet you did, every time you silenced me, every time you made me doubt myself, every time you forced me to apply makeup over the pain. I can change. I don't want you to change. I want you to stay away." Julian tried to take her hand, but she firmly retreated. "No more," she said. "You no longer have permission." Returning to her office, a new assistant was waiting for her. She was young, thin, with deep circles under her eyes and trembling hands. "I'm Lucy. HR assigned me to assist with your schedule." Valerie looked at her intently. There was something familiar in her eyes, the same contained fear that Valerie knew well. "First time in a position like this?" "Yes," Lucy replied, lowering her gaze. "I worked in other offices, but never for very long." During lunch, while everyone talked among themselves, Lucy stayed alone in a corner. She didn't eat, didn't talk. She just held her notebook as if it were a life raft. Hours later, during a presentation, Lucy fainted in front of everyone. "Call someone," an employee shouted. Valerie immediately approached, took her hand, and asked for space. Seeing that no one was doing anything, she took her to the infirmary herself. "I'm fine," Lucy whispered when she regained consciousness. "I just didn't eat breakfast." Valerie offered her water, stroked her hair like a little sister, and quietly said something unexpected. No one should fall without someone there to pick them up. Lucy looked at her with eyes full of contained tears. She said nothing else. When the day ended, Valerie reviewed the reports and found something strange. There was a classified file in her name, blocked. She requested it from the confidential archive. They told her she had to wait 24 hours. That night, upon arriving home, she found an envelope on the table. It had no sender, only her name written by hand. She opened it slowly. Inside was a single sheet, a phrase written in black ink with trembling handwriting. "Your mother is not dead." For an instant, the world stopped spinning. Valerie felt a chill run down her arms. She looked around as if someone might be watching her. Her heart started beating faster. That envelope hadn't been left by anyone from the company. There was no way. It was personal, intimate. "Your mother is not dead." The phrase drilled into her mind. She had always been told her mother died giving birth to her. Even the nuns at the convent where she grew up confirmed it. But now, what if everything was a lie? She sat down slowly, as if the weight of the paper was too much. And for the first time since taking power, Valerie felt fear. Not of losing what she had gained, but of discovering what had been stolen from her before she even knew it existed. Because if her mother was alive, then someone had silenced her. And in that story, the names were starting to repeat. Julian, Amelia, and someone else, someone who had not yet shown their face, but who was undoubtedly watching, waiting. The mask of power had begun to fall, and what lay beneath was only just beginning to be revealed. Valerie left the letter on the table as if it burned. The phrase floated in the air like thick smoke. "Your mother is not dead." She didn't know who had written it, but the handwriting had something familiar, something that shook her soul. She spent the night awake, staring at the closed envelope, wondering if everything she had believed was a lie. She remembered the nuns, the cold nights in the convent, the vague answers, the evasive looks when she asked about her mother. There were never photos, never a name, only a story repeated so many times that it ended up seeming true. The next morning, she went directly to the company's legal archives. She had full access as CEO, but some documents required special authorization, and this was one of them. "I need file 94 HL2. "It's registered under the name Arthur Scott from over 20 years ago," she told the custodian, an older man who lowered his gaze upon hearing the name. "That is sealed by a court order. It can only be opened with a direct order from the board." Valerie leaned both hands on the desk. "I am the chairman of the board." The man hesitated for a few seconds before handing over the folder. It was dusty, as if no one had touched it in decades. The cover was marked in red ink, confidential. She read every page slowly. When she reached the second inner envelope, sealed with wax, she broke it without hesitation. Inside were papers signed by her adoptive father, Arthur Scott, relating the irregular adoption of a child under ecclesiastical custody. The most disturbing thing was not the legal details, but an attached medical report suggesting that the biological mother had been admitted to a psychiatric hospital after suffering an emotional collapse following the forced loss of her daughter. Valerie felt the ground shift beneath her. There were names, signatures, addresses. One in particular caught her attention. Clara Peterson, the nurse responsible for the case at St. Clair's Hospital. She wasted no time, leaving in silence. She commented nothing to the team. No one should know yet. That same afternoon, at a modest house on the outskirts of the city, she knocked on the door with her heart pounding in her throat. A woman in her 70s with weathered skin and a serious face opened it. Clara Peterson. The woman observed her for several seconds before answering. You are her, aren't you? Valerie didn't know how to respond. Her who? The woman opened the door without saying more. Come in. Inside, the smell of camphor and medicine filled the air. Crucifixes and old photographs hung on the walls. Clara invited her to sit down. Then she stood, as if it were difficult to say what she had to say. You were a baby when I saw you last. They ripped you from the arms of a woman who screamed your name as if her soul was leaving her body. I didn't know what to do. They threatened me. They paid me to keep silent. Who threatened you? The woman pressed her lips together. She didn't answer immediately. She walked to a drawer, pulled out a small envelope, and handed it to her. I kept this all these years. I don't know why. Maybe because I knew someone would come looking for it someday. Inside was an old photograph, a young, dark-haired woman hugging a baby. On the back, a date written in pencil. Valerie looked at the image as if it were a distorted mirror. She is my mother. Clara nodded. Her name was Teresa. Well, that's what she said before they took her away. They said she was crazy, but she wasn't. She was just broken with grief. Valerie carefully put the photo away. She didn't want to cry there. She left the house as if the air were suffocating her. Her mother was alive, or at least had been after her birth. Where was she now? Who had ordered her confinement? The answer took shape in her mind with a name that hurt to pronounce, Amelia. Meanwhile, Julian was living his own storm. He had been officially demoted from his position. He no longer led projects or made decisions. Now he only attended meetings where no one listened to him. His former subordinates avoided looking him in the eye. One of them even laughed quietly when he saw him trip over a chair. Things at home weren't going well either. Amelia was more irritable than ever. She pressured him daily. You can't let that woman humiliate us like this. You are a Hayes by blood. She's an upstart. I've lost control, he replied, sinking deeper. Then act. Investigate. Find something to destroy her with. Why don't you do it? Julian asked with contained rage. What do you know that you don't want to tell me? Amelia turned slowly, as if those words had opened an old wound. There are things you don't understand, son. Then explain them to me because she is winning, and you seem more scared than furious. Amelia did not respond. She left the room and left him alone with his paranoia. That night, Julian didn't sleep. He paced back and forth, his eyes bloodshot and his thoughts clouded. He began to hear noises, to see shadows. At one point, he thought he saw Valerie watching him from the garden. He ran out, but no one was there. His mind was beginning to crumble. The next day, Valerie arrived at the company with a harder expression than usual. Lucy was waiting for her in the office with the day's report. Did you sleep well? The young woman asked timidly. No. Lucy hesitated, then took a deep breath. There's something I didn't tell you. Valerie looked at her intently. I'm listening. Before I came here, I was in places that weren't offices. I was taken out of school at 13. My mother sold me. I went through houses where I was treated like merchandise. I escaped. I changed my name, but I still feel like there are chains that can't be seen. Valerie felt a lump in her throat. She approached her and touched her arm. You are not in that place anymore. You will grow here. No one will ever use you again here. Lucy nodded, holding back tears. Thank you for giving me a chance. I was also an invisible girl, Valerie said. And now I am visible so that others can be too. Hours later, while signing documents in her office, someone knocked on the door. Excuse me, the security guard said. There's a boy outside asking to see you. He says his name is Mateo. He's alone. Valerie frowned. She went out immediately. In front of the building, next to a planter, stood a boy about 7 years old, with messy hair and enormous eyes. Seeing her, he smiled and held out his arms. Mom! Valerie froze. She knelt in front of him. What did you say? You're my mom. No, honey, I think you're confused. No. I see you in my dreams, and my grandma said I would find you someday. Who is your grandma? The boy pulled a wrinkled sheet of paper from his pocket, a child's drawing with a long-haired woman and a giant heart. She told me it was you, that you weren't dead. Valerie looked at the guard. Where did he come from? An older man brought him. He said he would return later. He didn't want to give his name. The boy hugged her tightly. His heart beat against Valerie's chest as if he had found a home. But she didn't understand. Who is this child? Why did he say he was her son? They took him to the children's reception area, where he was put under care. But Valerie couldn't stop thinking about him. At nightfall, she returned home. She opened the folder with the last documents from the archive. One of them fell to the floor as she took it out. Picking it up, she noticed a photograph attached with a clip. The image showed a woman kneeling, her face covered in tears. In front of her, a familiar figure held a baby. The face was younger but unmistakable, Amelia. A coldness ran through her body like a violent whisper. There she was, with the baby in her arms while another woman implored, cried, dragged herself. That woman was her mother, and Amelia had separated her from her. Valerie dropped the photo. For the first time in days, she didn't know what to do. Who was Amelia, really? What kind of crime had she hidden for so many years? The answer was hidden in the threads that had tied her since she was a child, and now, one by one, they were beginning to break, but not without noise, not without consequences. Because when you pull a thread that has held a lie for decades, the entire fabric begins to collapse, and what is exposed can be more painful than the silence. Valerie stared at the photo for long minutes. Tears ran down without permission, silent, as if her body knew what her mind did not yet dare to accept. In that image was the story they had always hidden from her. Her mother kneeling imploring. And in front of her, Amelia, with a twisted smile and a baby in her arms. That baby was her. That image was more than proof. It was a sentence. The air in the room seemed to have stopped. Valerie tried to take a deep breath, but something in her chest wouldn't allow it. Everything inside her trembled, not only from the discovery but from the contained rage, from the years of lies, from every solitary night in that convent, from every time she wondered why no one had come looking for her. She took the phone with trembling hands and dialed Julian's number. "Valerie," he answered, surprised. "I want to see you in my office now. In 20 minutes. Don't be late." She hung up before he could respond. When Julian entered, he found Valerie standing with the photo on the desk. There was no greeting or courtesy, only an icy glare that forced him to shut up. "Does this look familiar to you?" He looked at the image, and his face changed completely. He didn't ask what it was. He didn't feign surprise. He lowered his gaze like a child caught in a lie too old. "Why didn't you tell me?" she asked without raising her voice. "How long did you know the truth?" Julian didn't answer. He clenched his fists, unable to meet her gaze. "From the beginning, Valerie." From the beginning. My mother asked me not to say anything." "Of course. Because to you I was a nobody. I was just a tool, something you could mold, someone without a past, without a history." "It wasn't like that." "Then how was it? Did you love me? And yet you kept quiet while your mother destroyed mine." "I didn't know everything, only parts. I found out after we were married. And you said nothing." "I was afraid of losing you," Julian murmured. And for the first time he seemed sincere. "You knew I was a nobody to you, but you feared that one day I would be more than you." The phrase went through him like a knife. There were no shouts, no argument. Only that truth spoken in a low voice. Julian left without saying more. He knew he had lost everything. That night, Valerie did not return home. She locked herself in a hotel far from the company, far from everyone. Insomnia accompanied her like a shadow, and when she finally closed her eyes, she did not rest. She dreamed of her mother in that image, with the echo of a cry that wasn't hers but felt like her own. The next day, Lucy found her pale with sunken eyes. "You haven't eaten anything," she said softly. "I'm not hungry. Are you going to get sick?" Valerie didn't respond. Lucy closed the folder in her hands and sat down across from her. "You saved me when no one else saw me. And now that you're like this, I feel like I don't know how to help you." Valerie looked at her for the first time in hours. "No one can help me. I have to do it alone." Lucy hesitated. Then in a low voice she added, "I thought so too. Until you arrived." Those words didn't cure anything, but they gave her some warmth. A reminder that in the midst of so much darkness, something different could still be sown. Hours later, Valerie made a decision. She reviewed the documents in the file she hadn't finished reading. On one of the last pages, a name appeared that she hadn't noticed. Henry Fuentes' biological father. Status: missing. She investigated, searching official records. Nothing. He had been erased from the map, as if he had never existed. But then, among the hospital papers, she found a handwritten note, undated. Detected in marginal areas of the West District. Refused medical attention in a state of indigence. Without thinking twice, she went to the district. She walked through alleys, asked in soup kitchens, showing an old photo found in the file. Many ignored her, others knew nothing, until a woman with a rough accent pointed with her chin towards a bench. That one there is named Henry. He sometimes raves. Says he lost a daughter. Valerie approached with slow steps. A man covered with old blankets, a long beard, and a dull gaze was watching birds eat crumbs. Henry Fuentes. The man didn't respond or look at her. Henry, are you from the court? He suddenly asked in a worn voice. No, I am Valerie Scott. The man turned slowly. His eyes filled with tears before his face could understand it. Valerie, he whispered, my girl. She froze. You know me. I looked for you all these years. Your mother, she fought so hard for you. Where is she? She's alive, but I don't know how she is now. The last time I saw her, she couldn't remember me. Valerie sat down next to him. For minutes, they said nothing, just shared the silence of those who have been mutilated by time. Why did no one tell me anything? She finally asked. Because your mother's family hated her. They said she was a disgrace. They were ashamed of me for being poor. They wanted to make me disappear, and they succeeded. They threw me onto the street, locked her up, and took you as if you were a bag of trash. The tears were no longer hidden. They fell without resistance. He awkwardly took her hand. I'm sorry. I couldn't save you. It wasn't your fault, she murmured. Now I want to find her. She returned to the company with one idea in mind, to go to the psychiatric hospital. She confirmed the name, St. Gabriel Residence. Teresa Fuentes had been interned there for years. According to reports, she suffered from dementia. No one visited her, no registered family member. Upon arrival, the place looked like a disguised prison. Gray walls, locked doors, indifferent staff. Who are you looking for? Teresa Fuentes. I am her daughter. The nurse looked up in surprise. She doesn't have visitors. She does now. They took her to a small room. There, sitting in a wheelchair with a lost gaze, was her mother, white hair, opaque eyes. She seemed distant, as if her mind floated in a place no one else had access to. Valerie approached. Mom! The woman looked at her, but did not recognize her. You're new. Are you going to bring me tea? I'm your daughter, Mom. I'm Valerie. Valerie, she repeated in a muted voice. What a beautiful name. Valerie knelt in front of her. I'm here. No one will separate us again. No one will hurt you again. The woman extended her trembling hand and touched her cheek. She smiled for an instant. Then she looked back at the window as if the moment had been only an echo. Valerie hugged her tightly with tenderness. She felt something break inside her. It wasn't sadness, it was liberation. It was the wound closing, not because everything was fine, but because she was no longer alone. Don't worry. Now I will take care of you. And in that embrace, the victim ceased to be a daughter to become a mother, a refuge, a living justice. The truth cannot be covered with makeup. It can be hidden, it can be disguised, but one day it inevitably looks you in the face. And when it does, it demands to be spoken, even if it hurts, even if it burns, even if it destroys everything that seemed firm. Because only from that destruction can something new be born, something that no longer needs lies to sustain itself. Only the truth, however cruel, however necessary it may be. Valerie returned home with a tense body and an exhausted soul. She still had her mother's perfume on her clothes, a mix of aged lavender and helplessness. Her hands trembled, not from weakness, but from contained fury. She showered without turning on the light, as if she needed to erase every trace of the past before continuing with what was coming. She didn't want compassion or pity. She wanted justice, not in courts, not with lawyers. She wanted to expose the truth, show the open wound, let the world see the face of the one who had destroyed so many people from the comfort of her privileges. And for that, there was an exact date: the company's annual charity gala. Ironically, it had been Amelia's idea. A luxurious evening with live music, public donations, and cameras broadcasting live. She wanted to clean up her image, reposition herself as a philanthropist, as an exemplary mother, as the lady who helped raise Valerie. That's how it was put in the invitation, with a smile of hypocrisy and open arms, as one who pretends to redeem herself without paying the price. Valerie accepted immediately, but not to pay tribute, much less to thank her. She was going to use Amelia's own stage to undress her before everyone, not with shouts, not with hatred, but with evidence. Meanwhile, Julian was sinking. The degradation at the company had only been the beginning. The contempt in the hallways, the looks from employees, the change in attitude of those who once feared him. Now he was a zero, a phantom, a surname without power. He started drinking more than usual, sleeping on the sofa, losing himself for hours. He didn't answer calls. His mother pressured him with demands and complaints, but he no longer had answers, not even for himself. One night, he appeared at Valerie's house. The door was locked, but he pounded hard. When she opened it, she found him stumbling. Drunk, hollow-eyed, broken. "I need to talk to you," he murmured. She hesitated for a few seconds, then stepped aside, not out of compassion, but out of strategy. 5 minutes. He sat on the sofa, the same one that had once witnessed arguments, silences, and lies. "I loved you in my own way," Julian said in a slurred voice. "I never knew how to do it right. Everything I learned about love, I learned from her. Then you learned to use, to manipulate, to control. I'm not justifying anything. I just want you to know that I did love you." Valerie looked at him for a long time. "You don't know what it means to love, Julian. Love is not imposing, it's not silencing the truth, it's not choosing the comfort of a lie when someone next to you is dying inside. And I didn't know how to protect you," he said with watery eyes. "Because you never wanted to. Don't be confused. You weren't incapable, you were just a coward." Julian lowered his head. He stayed there in silence, then got up and walked to the door. Before leaving, he murmured without looking back, "I hope you can forgive me someday." Though I wouldn't. Valerie closed the door and took a deep breath. What she felt was no longer hatred. It was a kind of bitter indifference, like when a wound stops hurting because it no longer matters how much it bled. The next day, she received an unexpected call from Lucy. Her voice sounded different, trembling, hopeful. "Valerie, I think I found my son." Valerie dropped everything and went with her. They went together to a house on the outskirts. A woman received them at the entrance. She didn't give her name, just asked them to enter quietly. In a small room, with a makeshift bed and used toys, a 5-year-old boy was drawing with crayons. When Lucy saw him, her world went dark. Her heart pounded against her chest as if it would break. She walked slowly, knelt in front of him, and whispered, "Matteo." The child looked up, recognized her without words, and ran into her arms. Lucy broke down, screamed, cried like never before, and Valerie, from the doorway, felt something repair in the universe, as if an old crack had finally closed. They returned to the city together, and Valerie gave Lucy a permanent job in the company's social services area. Her mission would now be to help other women who, like her, had been silenced and torn from what they loved most. That night, Valerie felt a sharp pain in her abdomen. She doubled over in the kitchen, clutching the edge of the countertop. She had told herself too many times that everything was fine, that it was just stress, that it would pass. But it didn't pass. She went to the doctor in secret. They ran tests. She waited for the results alone, her hands cold on her legs. The diagnosis arrived without anesthesia. Cancer. Initial stage. "It hasn't metastasized, but we have to act now." She didn't cry. She didn't ask how much time she had. She only thought of her mother, of Lucy, of everything that still needed to be done. "I won't tell anyone," she told the doctor. "Not yet. You will need emotional support, physical. Later," she said. "First, I have to close something." She left with the papers in her purse. No one knew what was happening. Not Lucy, not Henry, no one. The gala arrived on the marked date. The theater was packed, dim lights, soft music, the press at the entrance. Everyone was talking about Amelia Hayes' new philanthropic era. No one suspected what was about to happen. Valerie arrived dressed in white, radiant, serious. She walked the red carpet without smiling. She sat at the main table. Amelia took the stage shortly after. She spoke of values, family, social justice. Her words sounded empty, rehearsed, surrounded by paid applause. "And I especially want to thank my dear Valerie for letting go of resentment and honoring me with her presence. Not all families are perfect, but forgiveness is the true sign of evolution." Valerie stood up, took the microphone, her voice steady. "Thank you for your words, Amelia. And since we are talking about evolution, I would like to share a testimony." She signaled to the sound technician. The screens on the stage lit up. An old video appeared. Hidden camera. Blurry but clear image. Amelia, younger, sat in front of a desk. "I don't want that woman to go near the child again. Understand this well. If necessary, commit her. I'll sign anything, but I don't want to see her again." That child will never know where she came from. The audience fell silent. No one breathed. If she asks about her mother, a male voice said from off camera. Invent something. That she died, that she abandoned her. It doesn't matter. That child is mine now. The video stopped. Amelia was pale. She pressed a hand to her chest. She murmured something no one understood. Some thought she was faking it, others that she would faint. Valerie looked at the crowd. That child was me, and that woman who was disappeared was my mother. Committed by order of Mrs. Amelia Hayes, not for mental illness, but for vengeance, for hatred, for power. The silence was replaced by murmurs. Some attendees stood up, others recorded. The live broadcast continued. Social media was on fire. For years, I lived believing I was an orphan, that I was worthless, that I should be grateful for the little I had. I know the truth, and the truth no longer needs makeup. She put down the microphone, descended from the stage. She did not look at Amelia, did not give her the pleasure of seeing her beg. That night, the entire country talked about Valerie, about the recording, about the lie that collapsed before millions. But what no one knew, what was still buried beneath all that noise, was the most dangerous thing. What was left unsaid, because when a powerful woman loses control, she doesn't always fall. Sometimes she attacks. And the question was no longer whether Amelia was finished. The question was how far she was willing to go now that she had lost everything. Amelia Hayes had built her world on foundations of fear, lies, and manipulation. And now, seeing everything collapse in front of the cameras, she wasn't thinking of surrendering. She was thinking of revenge. She didn't believe in repentance. She had no room for guilt. The only thing she had left was venom, and she would use it. After the gala, she disappeared for almost 48 hours. Her mansion was empty, the staff abandoned her, and the authorities began searching for her with an arrest warrant for aggravated concealment, document forgery, and complicity in unlawful confinement. No one knew if she had crossed the border, if she was hiding, or if someone was protecting her from within. Valerie did not celebrate Amelia's public downfall. There was no peace on her face, only a deep exhaustion, one she couldn't hide. Every day was a battle between rage and fear, between duty and fatigue. The disease advanced stealthily while she feigned strength in front of everyone. Lucy became her shield. She organized schedules, meetings, and press releases, and she also protected her from the journalists who waited day and night outside the company. Some shouted aggressive questions. Others begged for exclusive interviews. One sector of the press treated her as a heroine, another as an opportunist. No one really knew who Valerie was, and that made her stronger. But the cameras didn't know that at night, Valerie was vomiting blood in the sink, that she could barely sleep, that her ribs hurt with every breath. No one knew that her hair was falling out in clumps, and that she wore a wig under her scarves. They also didn't know that the doctor had told her the cancer was advancing faster than anticipated. She knew it, but she didn't have time to stop. Not until everything was clear, not until Amelia paid. On the third day after the gala, Amelia was captured at a private airport. She had tried to leave the country with false documents. In her suitcase, she carried luxury watches, jewels, an obscene amount of cash, and a note with names of corrupt political contacts. She was arrested without resistance, fully made up as if for a dinner, and with a frozen smile. To the cameras, she only said one sentence. "I did everything for my son. She was never worthy of him." That cry echoed through the news, and on social media, the indignation grew. There were those who condemned her, and those who, incredibly, justified her. People who saw her as a protective mother, a victim of a generation that no longer understood family as it used to. Valerie did not respond to any statement, did not give interviews, did not want anyone to speak for her. What she had to say, she had already said on stage. Now it was up to justice to act. Days later, with the trial in preparation, Valerie took a car and went alone to the convent where she had grown up. She wanted answers, but she also wanted to say goodbye to what shaped her, what broke her. The nuns received her nervously. Some looked at her with compassion, others with suspicion. The Mother Superior took her to the small oratory where Valerie spent her afternoons as a child, dreaming of an imaginary mother and a family that loved her. She sat on the same wooden bench, in front of the same stained glass window. This time she didn't pray, she just closed her eyes and listened to the silence. A silence different from before. It was no longer the silence of abandonment. It was the silence of reconstruction. As she left, one of the older nuns, with slow steps and a clear gaze, handed her an envelope. "He came a few days ago. He said he was your father. He knew you would return." Valerie took the envelope without saying anything. She returned to the car and opened it there. It was a letter written with shaky strokes. Henry, her true father. My daughter. When you read this, I may no longer be here. But I am not writing to say goodbye. I am writing to thank you for having forgiven me with your eyes, even though you said nothing, for having embraced your mother, even though she couldn't recognize you, for not becoming what they made you. There are people who go through life leaving wounds. You went through life healing them. Even if you don't know it, even if you sometimes believe you are only surviving, you heal, like things that truly hurt. I am proud to be your father. Know that you were the love story your mother, and I never got to live. Your father, Henry. The letter trembled in her hands. She cried in the car without witnesses. Not for him, not for what wasn't. She cried for everything she never had, for everything that still hurt, for every part of her that was silenced and that finally had a voice today. That night, Lucy prepared her a warm soup. She saw her arrive with a distraught face. Where were you? At the convent. He died. Lucy didn't ask more, she just sat beside her. There was no need to speak, just to be. The trial against Amelia was scheduled for 3 weeks later. Valerie didn't plan to attend all the hearings. She wanted justice to do its job without turning it into a spectacle. But something changed her plans. At midnight, a call woke her up. The number was blocked. She answered with a sleepy voice. Valerie, it's me, Julian said. His voice sounded desperate. Broken. What are you doing calling at this hour? Forgive me. I don't know how to tell you this. I need to see you. It's urgent. Tell me what's wrong. I'm outside. Don't hang up. He hung up before she could respond. Valerie got up, covered herself with a robe, and went to the door. She saw him from the window. He was standing next to the car with something wrapped in his arms. She opened the door slowly. What is that? He was trembling. It's Matteo. Valerie felt her heart stop. What did you do to him? Nothing. I didn't hurt him. I just wanted to leave with him. Go far away, start over. I'm sorry. I couldn't do it. I couldn't get away. The child was sleeping wrapped in a blanket. Give him to me, she ordered. Julian obeyed. With clumsy hands, he handed him over. I didn't know what else to do. No one wants me. You hate me. My mother is in jail. My father died without saying goodbye, and I'm empty. You chose to be alone, she replied. He fell to his knees, crying, hitting the ground. He was a man destroyed by his own reflection. I just wanted someone to look at me without contempt. That child doesn't need a father like you, Valerie said with a calm that destroyed him. He needs a mother who no longer puts makeup over her pain. And she closed the door. That was the last time she saw Julian. Lucy woke up from the noise. Seeing Valerie with Matteo in her arms, she understood everything. She hugged him. She cried in silence. Then she took him to her room, tucked him in, and sat next to him. Valerie looked at the sky through the window. Dawn was already breaking. The trial began that same day, but she already had the most important sentence. Hers. Legal justice is fulfilled, but the justice of the soul is only achieved when one dares to look head-on at what always hurt and decides not to repeat it, not to perpetuate it, not to inherit the damage. Because there are wounds that are inherited, but there is also courage that is transmitted. And Valerie was ready to close the cycle, even if it cost her her life, even if it hurt more than everything before. She was ready for what was coming, because there was nothing left to hide, no more price to pay. The silence was over, and the voice of all those who could never speak was finally heard. Amelia Hayes' trial became one of the most publicized in the country. Every testimony was a stab against the image of an exemplary mother she had built for decades. The lawyers tried to divert the focus, alleging senile dementia, emotional blackmail, pressure from third parties, but the recording, the documents, and the direct witnesses' declarations were irrefutable. She was convicted of multiple charges, including identity fraud, aggravated confinement, and abuse of power. She showed no remorse. She didn't even cry. She walked out in handcuffs with her head held high, still convinced she had done the right thing. The press waited for Valerie outside the courthouse, but they didn't find her. She didn't attend the final hearing. She was at the hospital receiving the last round of chemotherapy. Her body ached, her skin burned, her hair no longer existed beyond memory, but inside she was clean. The poison had come out, not the cancer. The other one, the deepest one, the one called fear. Years passed. 3, then 5. The city changed, the company too. Valerie was no longer spoken of as a destroyed woman. Now she was named as a symbol, as a survivor, as a reference of truth. She did not give commercial interviews. She did not sell out to any media. What she shared, she did on her own terms, from the foundation she had created with Lucy, without fear. Lucy became a pillar, taking the reins of social work, expanding the foundation to other states, rescuing dozens of women trapped in networks of abuse and exploitation. Mateo, her son, grew up amidst talks, affection, and books. Valerie gave him her biological father's middle name as an act of symbolic reparation. Henry. Valerie's mother passed away peacefully. Her last days were spent at home with her daughter, recognizing her in small flashes of lucidity that were enough for every word to be worth gold. Before she died, she gripped Valerie's hand tightly and whispered something Valerie would never forget. "You were my longest fight and my sweetest victory." When she was buried, there were no long speeches, only white flowers, a soft song, and the dignified silence of someone who was never able to speak in time. Julian did not reappear publicly. He was admitted to a psychiatric clinic after several episodes of self-harm. He had no visitors. He didn't respond to his name. He walked the hallways with a lost gaze. They called him by a number. He lived among childhood drawings and questions no one answered. Valerie was notified by protocol. She chose not to see him but sent a book. The only one she wrote with her own story. That book changed lives. The first edition sold out in weeks. It was not a self-help book. It was a raw, honest testimony with real names and undisguised emotions. She did not ask for compassion. She did not justify anyone. She spoke of wounds, memory of women who love, who keep silent, who resist, and what happens when they stop being silent. "No makeup can cover the silence," one of the first sentences read. "No blow can defeat a woman determined to live without fear." That phrase became a banner, a tattoo, a motto. Women from different countries began to write to her, sending letters, messages, photos with the book in hand. Some read it in prisons, others in shelters, still others in a courthouse waiting room before filing a complaint for the first time. Valerie never expected fame or wanted recognition, but the universe had other plans. She was invited to give conferences, massive talks, some at universities, others in forgotten neighborhoods. She always said the same thing before starting. "My story is not the hardest or the most tragic. It is just a story that was lucky enough to find a voice in time. There are others who are not so lucky, and it is for them that I continue to speak." At one of those conferences, at the end of the presentation, a woman approached with a teenager by the hand. He had big eyes, a serene gaze. The boy didn't speak, he just watched her intensely. "He remembers you. He says you hugged him once at the entrance of your office." Valerie looked at him intently. He nodded slightly. Then he wrote something in a small notebook hanging from his neck. He showed her the page. In crooked letters it said, "You taught me not to be silent." She felt a lump in her throat. She knelt down, hugged him, and whispered, "Then it was all worth it." Leaving the conference, she took a deep breath. The night was cool. The city seemed different, less hostile. Perhaps it was just her who had changed. She walked home without a bodyguard, without a chauffeur. She calmly climbed the stairs, turned on the living room light. Everything was silent. She poured herself tea, took off her shoes, and went to the bathroom. She stopped in front of the mirror. She observed her reflection carefully. She no longer wore a wig. Her hair was growing back slowly, curly, wild. The marks of the treatment were still on her skin. They were not scars, they were medals. She touched her face. There was no makeup, no blush, no foundation, no shadow. Only her. For the first time in a long time, she smiled. Not out of obligation, not out of protocol, not because someone asked her to. She smiled because she was no longer afraid, because now she knew who she was and what she was, and she didn't need to disguise herself anymore. What did you think of this story? There are many people like Valerie Scott, living silent battles every day. Our hope is that her voice has also resonated within you. If this story touched your heart, share it. Make more people feel accompanied. Be part of the change. Tell us in the comments what you would have done in her place, and what city you are watching us from. Reading your comments makes us feel closer to you. And if you haven't already, subscribe and activate the bell. Every gesture from you is a sign that these stories must continue to be told. Don't leave yet. Our next compelling story is already appearing on your screen. Click on any of them and continue exploring this universe of real, moving, and necessary stories. Thank you for being here. Thank you for feeling with us. We send you a big hug wherever you are. See you in the next one.